Hello everybody and welcome to Lockdown Literature, courtesy of the Studio Online and the National Lottery Community Fund. You are about to listen to an audio story from a series of writing gathered during the COVID-19 lockdown from both the adults and children's write-on sessions. So relax, settle back and enjoy a selection of writing from some of the finest creative minds at the studio. The House with 3 Floors by Paula Page.
Great Auntie Flo was unique. She was in our family anyway. It's not an exaggeration, just a simple fact. Someone said to me, "Sorry, our mistake, it seems baby Flo was switched at birth. These things happen." I'd readily accept it. Don't get me wrong, there was nothing wrong with my other relatives. It was just that she was so very different. Hard to believe, I know, but I come from a very working class, very rough and ready family. Great Auntie Flo was the eldest of 6. This family liked to drink, liked to F and blind and fight with one another, but not our Auntie Flo. She was a lady, spoke with a cut glass accent like Celia Johnson in Brief Encounter. Received pronunciation, they called it. I'm convinced she could have worked with the BBC. The odd thing was, nobody ever questioned why she spoke that way, where it came from. This was Flo, just the way she was. It wasn't like she was rich, but clearly she'd done better for herself than the others because she had a house. Not a flat or a maisonette rented off the Corpy. Her own house that she owned with Uncle Jim. A 3-storey house. It terrified me. When my mum took me to visit, we'd stand outside the black front door waiting for it to open, and I'd tell myself, whatever you do, don't look up. Do not look up. What could be looking back at me? Surely just 3 rows of windows, the sills painted black, the nets crisp and clean. But what if those curtains twitched? What if there was a pair of eyes I didn't recognise glaring back at me? I was never brave enough to test this theory. Auntie Flo was exotic. She had 2 pets. We lived in a flat, strictly no animals allowed, or so Mum told me. The nearest I got was a pyjama case that bore a passing resemblance to a poodle. Auntie Flo had a German shepherd called Flash, who was always flinging itself through the plate glass window in the vestibule door, possibly on reflection in a bid to escape. She also had a Siamese, just like the cat on Blue Peter. I can't remember its name, but I do recall it just sitting there, staring, like it knew a lot more than it would ever let on. It was a cold house all year round with impossibly high ceilings. There were rooms I never got to go into, like the front parlour. Not a place for children, my dear, Auntie Flo would say, if she caught me glancing at her curiously. Then there were the other rooms that I dearly wished I could never have to go into, and on the top of that list was the bathroom on the 3rd floor. Trouble was, I was a little kid. Auntie Flo would feed me up on her special ham sandwiches and buckets of orange cordial, and sooner or later, as our visits would invariably a couple of hours at the least, I would be squirming in my seat, unable to keep still, as I fought the inescapable fact that I had to visit the toilet. My mum would bark at me. "Have you got worms? What's to do with you? Do you need the toilet?" I'd nod sheepishly. "Well, go on then, soft shite." It was the 70s. That's how they did childcare then. I knew what was ahead of me. I'd go reluctantly into the hall, but I never looked up those stairs, the ones I had to climb where I desperately needed to be. The bathroom was right at the top of these 3 terrible endless flights. With my eyes staring intently into the yellow and black nauseous pattern of the stair carpet, I'd launch myself upwards. I'd go as quickly as I could, although the nearer I got to the top, it seemed to me that the carpet was made of treacle. My feet were reluctant to go forward, like they knew what was waiting. It got colder too, even in the height of summer. This has always bothered me. I'm no scientist, but surely heat rises, right? Not here. The higher I went, it was like I was being enveloped in an icy embrace. I imagined cold fingers tracing their dead tips along the back of my neck, not gripping me like they could, just toying with me, letting me know I was far from alone. It seemed like it took forever and I'd never get there, but eventually I'd made it to the 3rd floor. But for some unknown reason, the bathroom was not immediately behind a door off the landing. Almost like someone's idea of a very sick joke, it waited for me at the end of a very long and dark and narrow corridor. I had no choice. I had to use the toilet. I would take a deep breath, shut my eyes tightly and run as fast as I could, hoping against hope that I'd make it safely. I'd propel myself at the bathroom door, painted black of course, and stumble through. I had to prioritise. I had a pressing reason for putting myself through all of this after all. As I sat on the throne, I would briefly forget my recent terrors and take in my surroundings. The bathroom always reeked of paraffin because a heater was permanently holding court, belching out its noxious fumes as it desperately tried to bring the temperature up to a level fit to sustain life. It never succeeded. The black tiles and the black bathroom suite were an interesting design choice. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that since. They set off Auntie Flo's collection of dolls, the type very popular in the 1970s. They had knitted skirts that covered up a never-ending supply of toilet rolls, and a small army of them inhabited the long black windowsill. The more I looked at them, the more I wonder who's looking at who. The bathroom window was in a permanent state of condensation, with rivulets perpetually running like tears down its length. The longer I looked, the more organised the water rails would become, until words started to form before me. Go now. Clearly I'd outstayed my very limited welcome. I'd feel the panic rise within me. Maybe the bathroom wasn't the safe haven I'd hoped for. Maybe I'd walked right into the trap that had been intended for me all along. I never waited long enough to find out. Running blindly down that awful claustrophobic passageway, I would make my escape and my rapid descent to safety. I'd stumbled back into the kitchen, and it was like they'd hardly noticed I'd been away. Occasionally, through a cloud of cigarette smoke, one might say to me, "Did you fall down the toilet or what?" While I'd been gone, Auntie Flo would have conjured up another loaf full of ham sandwiches and another glass of orange cordial, and would tip me the wink while she listened intently to Mum's many grievances about the rest of our family. I never told my mum or anyone else about the terrors I felt in the house. I thought that if I did, then it would make it somehow more real. Let's face it, I was a precocious child. My mum told me this often enough. I had an overactive imagination. Everyone always says this about me. It must be true. I was just being a daft kid. It was a sugar rush. I forgot it and I grew up. Many years later, Auntie Flo was in her final days. She was a ripe old age by anyone's standards. It seemed like a lifetime of smoking and social drinking in moderation hadn't really done her any harm at all. She was queen in residence at a rather nice nursing home in Garston, and I wanted to see her. I had an almost desperate need to do so. I had a feeling it was going to be the last time. Her eyes still sparkled, glinted almost as she stared at me, and her last words will never leave me. "Silly girl, they liked you. They only wanted to play."